coming. I have to do the usual salutations in Malaysia. Professor Asha Kanwa, Professor Dato Dr. Ansari, Francis, who is from COL, all you panelists, all the mentors, all the moderators, members of the media who's also here. Before I get really started, I just want to talk a little bit about today's program. I think at the end of YB Nuru's talk, which is coming in on Zoom, she's in Parliament right now. So she so graciously accepted this invite and she's happy to do it via Zoom. After her session, please, tea is served downstairs. I just want to let everybody expect what is happening. The press will be here with her, and the senior members of this delegation will also be inside this room talking to the press. So that's what it is today. Also at the end of today, in case you're not sure what's happening, dinner is served at around 5:30 to 6 o'clock, and it's within walking distance from here. So if you have time, I urge you to go out and wander around in between the breaks. This is the beautiful heritage district of Penang. All right. Now, I'm happy that we are co-hosting this. I'm happy that all of you have traveled 24 hours, 20 to 24 hours on the average coming out here. And many of you have participated virtually at the end of March and the 1st of April, if I'm not mistaken. And there were 18 of you from 14 countries who dialed in for the 3 mornings. I think we spent about 2 hours every morning over that period of time. And some of you were dialing in the middle of the night, and I really, really appreciated that. It shows your commitment to this program. We are now actually on our city campus. The main campus is the one that you saw when you came by, the white building and the blue building behind. That's the main campus. This is the city campus. Now, our city campus is located in the heart of what we call the Creative Digital District. This district was launched by our Chief Minister early this year in February. And WOU as an institution, we took the leadership with a few other agencies in Penang to say that we can recreate a part of the heritage district that's going to be a bit different. So instead of souvenir shops, nothing wrong with that. Instead of cafes and restaurants, nothing wrong with that. We want to bring digital nomads back into the city to live and to work here. And that's why in this space, this old building, we rented it from our stakeholders. This is actually donated to the foundation that funds our university, but we pay a rent to do this, and we pay for our own renovation. So we try to restore and preserve this beautiful building. This building houses the School of Digital Technology. And the thinking in this area is our Chief Minister would like to see over the next 3 years to attract at least 50 digital companies to invest. I think we are already more than 10%, 20% into it since we launched this February. And to create at least 2,000 high-income jobs and serve as anchors of the digital ecosystem in Penang. Our city campus, if you walk by, along the halls and the corridors, creates also a learning space, providing kindergarten and nursery simulation rooms for students of our diploma in early childhood education program to use in their activities. So you want to know more about it? Prof. Anna is here. She is the one who's the mastermind behind those nice little kindy rooms that you see. Everyone who comes by gets very excited with it. So that's just down the corridor. Some fun facts. This is supposed to be a relaxing thing. It's not supposed to be very formal. So I'm going to tell you a lot of fun facts, right? This street is called in Bahasa Lebo Gat China. Translated in English, it is China Street Ghat, Ghaut. And Ghat in Hindi actually means a landing place by the shore. Ghat, yes, a landing place by the shore. So this street is China Street, an extension of China Street. China Street is just maybe 30 meters from here. And you walk through China Street, it's actually Little India to me in that whole area. This was extended, and the whole area was reclaimed in between 1880 and 1904 to create a new commercial space by the waterside. If you walk in the other direction, it is the quay, the Well Quay. We used to have ferries going from Penang Island to the mainland. Today we have two beautiful bridges that connects the island to the rest of the mainland. So I hope you have time to walk around. And you can see still a lot of empty buildings here. So we're working with the state government, our university, and stakeholders in this area to see how we can further revitalize the whole district. We'll start out from here and hopefully it can extend into the rest of Penang. Getting back to the more serious side of things, women need role models for inspiration. And one way to address and overcome the preconceptions and barriers is to have more women in positions of leadership. You have to earn for it. You're not just put there because you are female, okay? We need to provide the support and the role models so that many with aspirations can advance in their careers, bringing about the much needed. Hang on, there's a problem with technology, right? It just jumps around. Bringing about much needed changes in the workplace and in other decision-making efforts to benefit both genders in the organization. Our event is themed Women Leaders, Shaping the Future for a Sustainable World. I feel it is a very ambitious but yet appropriate theme to share, discuss, and learn over the next couple of days how women leaders can lead and complement all leaders in shaping the future for a sustainable world. We thank many of you, and we thank many leaders, male and female, who are here today and the next 2 days, who will inspire and provide insights as all of you share your experiences with one another. For example, we have Dr. Professor Ansari, the founder president of Asia E University, the gentleman amongst us. He will be sharing with us from his perspective the art of negotiation later. We would also like to record our appreciation to Pematang Pau Member of Parliament, the Honorable Nurul Izzah Anwar, our keynote speaker, with years of leadership and grassroots experience in the realm of politics, and she will share her thoughts later this morning. Thank you all for coming. I hope the next couple of days you have many inspiring, fruitful discussions amongst yourselves. And I think the most important thing in an event like this and in a program like this is for all of you to form the lasting and enduring friendships that will take you through the rest of your career and your life. I'm new. I've been here 3 years, 2 years of which was under the pandemic. But over the 3 years, I've made a lot of friendships. We learned to do it via Zoom. We learned to do it virtually and now physically. And all these friendships will help support you as you move forward in your career. So please, look at this as just not learning, but forming the friendships and the support group that you will need later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Lily. Okay, let's give a warm welcome to Prof. Ashraf Anwar, President and CEO of COL, to give her inaugural presentation titled Towards Effective Leadership.
I can see this. Don't have to mess. Oh, it's falling apart. Okay. So, when you were going round the table, the room, I counted 14 countries, which is a lot actually, and 2 more are on the way. Sierra Leone and Cameroon, our West African sisters, are here to join us. But the point is that, when we talk about women's leadership, it's not just women in a kind of, silo separately from the men, which is why we need to show that, we need men and women leaders to promote gender equality. And that is very important because, if you look at the higher education figures in Commonwealth countries, you find that there are more women now in higher education than there are men. Now, 10 years down the line, this is going to be a real problem for the Commonwealth, where our highly educated women won't find the right partners, who are equally educated. So that is, again, tipping the balance in another direction. So we need gender equality, which means equal opportunities, equal status for men and women. One way or the other, if there is an imbalance, it doesn't work for anybody. So what is innovative leadership? Actually, I can even stop here and say, well, this is what Lily has been demonstrating. You can see what she's done with an old heritage building and made it an exciting learning space. This we used to talk about in the past, building as learning space, as learning device. She's demonstrating it. Here's another leader, who demonstrates what Lily was talking about. Mel Bandelaria, the way she has made the university so international and reached out internationally to so many people, and it really has raised the profile of the institution under her leadership. And at the same time, it sort of created those networks for innovations. Professor Ansari here, he is already in the metaverse. We have only heard of it. In fact, coming here, I was asking him, I said, explain to me, how it will work in actual practice in education. So here we have, and there is Aptar, there is our friend Zureni. All of them are innovators and innovative leaders, all of them. So even if I stop now, I'm in good business because you know what they are, what innovative leadership is. But since we have time till the MP comes, let me take you through what are the key issues of our time. Let's reflect on women's leadership. Where are the barriers? What are the dimensions of leadership which are relevant to all of us and men, women, children, everybody? And then finally, what is innovative leadership? I hope you'll find this interesting. So what are the key issues of our time? These are the 3. I'm not referring to more. One is the COVID-19 pandemic. We feel we are emerging from it, but not quite. Achieving Sustainable Development Goal 4 by 2030. All our countries have signed up for this. And climate change, which is happening everywhere. You've heard about what's happening in Europe, 40, 50 degrees. These are cold countries. Last year in Canada, we had 50 degrees, which is one of the coldest countries in the world. So how aware are we of the key issues of our time? Because as women leaders, we are academics. We know our discipline well. But what about the issues around us? We are talking about leadership for a sustainable world, sustainable development. We have to be aware of all these issues. For example, if you go to COVID-19, what were the main issues there? Technology. Some people had, some people didn't have. Teacher capacities. Suddenly they had to move to emergency remote teaching. They were not equipped for it. They didn't have the content. And then disproportionate impact on women and girls. You know what Malala Fund is saying, that 20 million girls will not be going back to school after the pandemic. Because of various reasons, there's a gap in their schooling. Some of them got pregnant. Now the stigma of going back to school is there. There are many reasons. Sometimes parents say, we don't have money now because of the economic downturn, so you stay at home. So 20 million girls are expected not to go back to school. So any climate disaster, whether it's pandemic, health disaster, has a disproportionate impact on women and girls. That's the way our societies are structured. If you look at the goal 4, this is Sustainable Development Goal 4, which aims to ensure inclusive, which means leaving no one behind, including persons with disabilities, and equitable quality education and lifelong learning opportunities for all. We know about the Sustainable Development Goals, but how much attention do we pay to this goal, and what are we doing towards accelerating progress towards it? Because earlier you heard of MDGs, Millennium Development Goals, where we wanted primary education for all. Now we've become so ambitious. We want primary, secondary, technical, vocational, and tertiary education for all and lifelong learning by 2030. Already, before the pandemic, the report said that by 2070, we will achieve tertiary education for all. How many years? 40 years after the goal. Now with the pandemic, it's become even worse. So what can we do? Everybody can do. We can't say that the government has to do or the vice chancellor has to do. I have no responsibility. That's the point, that if we are becoming leaders for sustainable development, we each have a responsibility and we can each make a difference. Climate crisis, now I'm only talking about the Commonwealth. Commonwealth has 32 small states. And Rajni from Fiji is a person from a small state. They have cyclones, hurricanes, tsunamis, all kinds of things are happening in the Pacific. And what happens? Everything gets washed away, all the books get washed away, schools get blown off, and then you have to start from scratch. So what is it that we can do to avert the climate crisis? Is there anything we can do to personally change our behaviors? I know what Lily has done. She's made this into a green campus. You don't get lights unless you step into the room, so you're not wasting energy. So these are the only three. There are many other issues. I'm only taking the biggest ones. And I'm asking you to reflect on this question. Are we equipped to address these issues and provide leadership in our own sphere? It may be with 2 people, it may be with the family, it may be with 10 people. But are we doing anything about this? We don't need the answer now, just think about it. So women's leadership. What about it? If you look at the gender gap in the Commonwealth, this is last year's report. The countries where the gender gap is the lowest are New Zealand, Namibia. Congratulations, Namibia. I have 2 Namibians here, including my own Francis. Rwanda. Rwanda has the highest number of parliamentarians at the moment. South Africa. So these are the countries where the gender gap is very low. And these are some of the countries, and we are all represented here, not Vanuatu, but Pakistan, India, that's my country, Nigeria is here, and Vanuatu. So there is a huge gender gap, especially in the Pacific. Pacific, there is 2 big problems. One is that hardly 1% of women in parliament, if you leave out Australia and New Zealand, and a great incidence of violence against women, that gender-based violence, especially in countries like Papua New Guinea, etc. So we still have a lot of ground to cover. In ICTs, because ICTs is one area where women are behind men. One is in the cloud computing world, only 14% women make up the workforce. Engineering, 20%, data and AI 32%. So we need to do something more, get more women into STEM. And then if you look at internet connectivity, again here, women are less connected than men globally. So what can we do about that? How can we connect more women? How can we bring them into STEM and cover these gender gaps? Now, if you look at women and education in Canada, I just looked at that. In 1990, there were 15% women in higher education with a university degree and 15.6, almost the same, but men were higher. And now in 2019, if you look at the thing, which is about 30 years later, the women have far outstripped men. This is happening, you know, in Brunei, if you go, University, Brunei Darussalam, 67% women in STEM subjects now, compared to men. California, same story. But if you look at the gender statistics of vice chancellors in the Commonwealth, UK, and I'm only looking at public universities, 29%, South Africa 15%, and India 7%. So even though women are getting higher levels of education, but in terms of higher level of positions, they are still not there. So why do so few women reach the top? Of course, they have family responsibilities. We know all that. Social norms, they don't expect women, you know, if the husband is doing well, no need for the woman to go out, you know, stay at home. And this is the other thing, you know, they want to be liked. We don't like to be disliked, you know, we are human beings, all of us. I think even Prof. Ansari will say men don't want to be disliked either. But these are some of the reasons why women don't reach the top. And there was one example of this, you know, Howard and Heidi. The same case study was given in a business school, but the names were changed. So Heidi was a woman and Howard was the man. And they did the same thing, you know, the case study was exactly the same, but they changed the name and they gave it to focus groups in the classroom. Better? So when they asked the groups for the impressions, they said Howard is a very appealing colleague for doing the same things. And for Heidi, they said, oh, she's very selfish. We don't want to work with somebody like her. So, you know, like when suddenly people say, oh, these women drivers, it's that same kind of mindset where we denigrate women, whereas the same thing we say. So I think women still have an uphill battle to break those negative perceptions before they can be at par. So I think what can we do? So are women leaders preferred? Another study by a HR firm found that 40% of the people surveyed prefer male managers, only 20% preferred women. And even the women, 44% of them said we prefer to work with male managers, and only 23%. I mean, there are several reasons that could be there for this. But, you know, this is what the situation is as of now, which is why we can't see so many vice chancellors, even though women are outstripping men in academic achievement. So we have to prepare ourselves against all those biases, stereotypes, barriers. So how do we build our capacity? And that's the critical thing. You know, we have to build our own capacity, work hard to make choices and to transform those choices, because simply making choices is not enough. Those have to be translated into action. We build our capacity and we act and we achieve outcomes. Then everybody will be looking at us and saying, we want these people to work for us. We want these people to lead us. We want these people to be there. So I think, what can we do to build that? And I think these 2.5 days, we have the opportunity to make an individual roadmap for ourselves. I think you already did that homework last time when we met virtually, that 10 years from now, where do I want to be? What are the steps that will lead me there? What do I need to do? So I think time to reflect and ask each other what we can do. So now we come to the third part, dimensions of leadership. This is an old book, textbook on reframing organizations about leadership, but I find it very useful, and I'm sure you will as well. There are 4 frames of leadership. The first is the structural frame. So what do we do in the structural frame? We set up strategic plans, we set goals, and we identify the results. We develop policies, chains of command, specialization. We collect data. We provide reports for accountability. All those things we do. So what kind of behavior do we need? Goal setting, evaluating, monitoring, budgeting, developing management and control systems. So you need good policies. This structural frame is very important. All of us are doing it. For example, CALL has developed a strategic plan 2021-27 after wide consultations across the Commonwealth. We have developed a monitoring and evaluation framework. We have developed a theory of change. We are monitoring progress against that. So this is the structural frame which all of us need. The second frame is the human resources frame. We can't achieve anything without the right people. So people should be valued as not only as a source, but as a kind of talent and an asset within the organization. Meet human needs, especially, during the pandemic, everybody was suffering. How do you mitigate people's anxieties? Facilitation and empowerment. How do we get consensus? How do we bring people into the discussion? Help employees fit into the organization. When new employees come, we have to do a lot of onboarding. CALL does a lot because, our employees also have a cultural shock, because if they are coming from some other country into Canada, you have to first navigate the cultural shock of coming into Canada, and then the cultural shock of coming into an organization where we want results yesterday. Universities we can do next month, next year, but that logic doesn't work in organizations like CALL, where we have to show the results like yesterday. So, it's a huge jump, but we have to help our employees get through that. So, which means recruiting, training workshops, fitting the right person for the right job. Don't bring overqualified people for underqualified positions, because the fitness for purpose is everything. Have retreats, participative management, communication skills, and communicate, tell people what's going on. Because, the corridors can be full of all kinds of speculation. I'm not using the word gossip, but all kinds of speculation. But if you have constant communication, you can somewhat mitigate those kinds of speculations that, like we used to say in our university, that, we have the habit of creating ghosts and then getting frightened by those ghosts, which are our own creation. So this is what I mean, speculating and then getting frightened by that. The third frame is the political frame, where what Lily said is very important, that she has to engage with her foundation, with the politicians, with people. Conflict and competition are a fact of life. So you also have to be politicians as leaders. Securing critical resources, funding, reaching agreement by negotiation that Prof. Ansari is going to tell us about, and need to understand power relations. We know that every relationship is one of power, where one person is more powerful than the other. And we have to understand that as a fact of life and learn how to negotiate it. So this is how we have to manage conflict, network. And if you have a good power base, it's easy for you to navigate the difficulties in an institution. So having, champions and supporters within the organization is very helpful, because when there's a conflict, then that comes to your rescue. So having a political frame is very important within the organization, but even externally, and I'll give you a solid example of that. This university in Canada, They were standalone open universities or tele-universities, like virtual universities. But because those universities did not have good political relationships or visibility with the provincial governments, all of them closed. The funding stopped. And in fact, in British Columbia, where Call is, the British Columbia Open University, which was a very respected institution, had to combine with University College of the Caribou, and it's now called Thompson Rivers University, somewhere in a remote area. And all because they did not have good political relationship in all these states, neither in Quebec nor in British Columbia. So I think the lessons from this example is that importance of relationships with governments is absolutely primordial, fundamental. Relationship building with other institutions, and importance of cultivating communities of students and even past alumni. All that, you never know where your alumni will have a voice in your favor. So I think, and one of the things which I find that, people don't remember is something which our parents taught us, that respect and humility will get you everywhere, and arrogance will get you nowhere. Some people actually choose arrogance thinking that this is what is going to give them power, but I think it is the opposite effect. The fourth frame is the symbolic frame. Now here we have, like Lily has given us those Wawasan Open University, like the badges and this, that, and the other, the symbolic dimension of any institution. You also have to do that. Because there are multiple realities. So how do we create that reality for our institution, for our organization, for our family? How do we create shared meaning? And how do we get people to identify with the vision, mission, and identity? Because, once a new colleague came to Call and he says, I never wrote the vision statement of Call. How can I identify with it? I said, but you came from a university. You never wrote the vision statement of that university. So how did you work there? So, people have these questions that it's not easy for people to identify with your vision and mission immediately because they never wrote it. But now they're buying into it, and it has to be a gradual process, and you have to help to induct them into that. So this means like Call has a flag because, we are far away. Most of the Commonwealth intergovernmental organizations, there are only 2, are in London. So people think we are an NGO. So I had to put a flag there to show every morning when people walk through the door, remember you are intergovernmental. So also diplomatic. Then slogans, songs, we also have a very nice Call song. What's our slogan? Promoting learning for sustainable development. Everybody rallies around that in the organization and among our partners. So, those rituals are very important to build a sense of identity. And I think you are doing. So my point is that there are 4 frames: the structural, the human resource, the political, and the symbolic. So will these frames lead to innovative leadership? Is there any one frame that you can afford to miss? You are also going to be future leaders, running organizations, etc. Is there anything we can drop out of this? Mel says no, so the answer is no. So, you can't be a leader unless you have followers. Then you are a messiah. And we don't want to be messiahs. We want all that those, people coming after us. So we have to do all those things if we want. And then finally, to the last part, what is innovative leadership? And is there anything we can learn from others? There are 2 types, we can say innovative leadership or leadership for innovation. Innovative leadership, applying innovative thinking to leadership tasks, like Lily has just shown us, or leadership for innovation, where you're asking your colleagues and motivating them to become innovative. And can you choose one or the other, or do you want to be both? What's the short answer? Yes or no? Zainabu, Both. Okay. So if you look at Steve Jobs, who's supposed to be a great innovator, innovative leader, and leader for innovation, what did he talk about? His main message was that you should have a passion for what you do. And the other thing which he said that, and this is something which he learned from Nike. Nike was not selling shoes. Nike was selling the photos of athletes, the ones who were winning gold medals in Olympics and so on. So he was selling the dream. He saw Nike was selling the dream, not the shoe. And that's what he did with Apple, that make things so exciting for people, show them the possibility, sell the possibility rather than the product. So the institution, we are not going to tell that, this is my MBA program. We are going to tell them what they can do with that MBA program if they were to join Wawasan Open University. So what are the skills for innovators? Because we have to also now motivate our people to become innovators. So there is this book that Dyer et al. Have written, which is the innovators DNA. They've actually done 5, but for the sake of simplicity, I've just picked 4. Questioning, asking questions, why does this work? Why does this not work? Not accepting everything. Observing, all great writers, etc., are very observant. They see what's happening. Are we going with blinkers or are we observing the world around us? Networking, not just for social networking, but networking for ideas. What can we learn from others? What are others saying that will trigger new ideas in my mind? And of course, experimenting, because sometimes you have to fail also. It's not always about success. How do we experiment, take risks, fail, and then learn from that and persevere? So in industry, what drives research and innovation? Here was a study where, the managers felt that it was the corporate culture which was most responsible for driving innovation and research, which means your institutional culture. And the staff, which means lower level staff employees, said that it's the people who drive research and innovation in an organization. So I think there's no contradiction between the two. It is the people and it is the culture of an organization. So we are also, most of us are distance learners. What drives ODL leaders? Philosophy, people, and processes. So what does this mean? The philosophy of openness, in distance learning, what is the philosophy? We've always been open rather than closed. Open as to people, that means anybody from any location can join us. Open as to places. Open as to methods. You can have persons with disabilities, persons with any difficulty. And methods, it doesn't have to be paper-based, it can be digital, it can be radio-based, it can be analog, it can be digital, open as to ideas. So we are open in along all these dimensions. And leaders have to be that, and they have to lead by example. My predecessor, Sir John Daniel, many of you know him. He has always been an inspiring leader. I've learned so much from him. He was my boss. And one thing which he told me, which I found very interesting, when he was the Vice Chancellor of the Open University UK, he used to enroll in his own courses just to see how user-friendly and student-friendly they were. So he led by example, and he told his staff when they came, nobody was sending emails when he joined as Vice Chancellor. This was many years ago. And he said, if you want any approval from me, send me an email. Don't send a file. So then everybody had to start sending emails. And this is how, he got people into technology. Then, are we effective advocates for ODL? Especially this question becomes very important today because everybody wants to do distance learning in some form or the other. We have a responsibility to provide that leadership, that expertise, because we have the experience. But first, we have to be convinced ourselves about, how effective ODL is. There's no room for doubt there. If we have the conviction, we'll be able to convince others. So how effective are we as advocates for ODL? The second is people. That how do we motivate and inspire staff? This is not easy, to be empathetic to different people's anxieties, concerns. Sometimes you think, oh my goodness, I mean, what's wrong with this person? Engage policymakers and stakeholders. We talked about the political dimension. Proactively support women leaders and provide incentives. You know that during the pandemic, we call started two things. One was Open Door, which was an online platform where 60 plus organizations joined us and contributed more than 200 online courses, which anybody could take free. MIT, World Bank, everybody, UNESCO joined us. But we didn't want to leave women behind. So we started CommonwealthWiseWomen.org, which was a platform for women, where we were mentoring women and girls in remote areas, where sometimes 5 girls were listening to one girl's smartphone and WhatsApp to get the mentoring support. And it was so helpful that now we are continuing it every 6 months. I'll quickly close in 2 minutes. Okay. So we'll talk about more. Francis will tell you more about Commonwealth Wise Women. She'll even show you the thing. Now, here is our colleague. I also had a picture of Mel, but I've removed it with her nice sash about that internationalization. But here, Tian Belavati was the head of University Terbuka. And what she did is when internet first came to Indonesia, and she started online courses, she created champions among the staff. Because, when the senior people say, people resist. But when your peers tell you, you listen. And she provided incentives. And this is how she, sort of converted and transformed the university into digital mode. So do we cultivate champions for change? And then finally, processes. We need good, solid, robust systems and policies in place. And we have to have a targeted approach. A general approach will not help us achieve desired results. If you are reaching women, then there has to be a targeted approach tailored to reach those constituencies. And here is this Open University of Japan. This was the Vice Chancellor. And 1/4 of the students in the Open University of Japan are over 60. So I'm going there. And government was declining the support. The support was coming down. So what he did was he started creating courses for the third age. And this is how, the university turned its academic programs to become relevant to the needs of the hour. So this is what the question for us is, are we evolving to remain relevant to the needs of our stakeholders? Are we? So women leaders evolve. There is no structured roadmap. And you can be a leader today and a follower tomorrow. So it depends on the context. I'm rushing through this. And Brenda Gourley, who was the Vice Chancellor of the Open University UK, another woman leader, she said that women leaders are less hierarchical, have more empathy, and are more caring. That's her impression. You may or may not agree. And finally, what are my strengths? What do I need to work on to become a better leader? This is something for us to think about on the 3 days. And the key message of this entire story is leadership is a skill. We are not born or die leaders. It's a skill we acquire. And it must be promoted among women if we need innovative leaders in ODL, which is why we are organizing this event and which is why we asked you to come from such long distances, because this is a skill we will collectively develop. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We now come to our much awaited keynote address. We are proud to welcome Member of Parliament for Pematang Pau, YB Nurul Izzah Anwar, who has agreed to participate in this event, although she is busy at Parliament. She finds time to be with us. YB Nurul Izzah is a famous name in Malaysia, but for the benefit of our foreign guests, a short introduction. She is an advocate on human rights and also is also known for Malaysia as the Princess of Reformasi. So let's give a warm welcome to YB Nurul Izzah
Thank you for that welcome. Can you hear me all right? Okay, I hope so, since I can't hear any feedback. Professor Asha, Professor Lily Chan, Professor Dr. Ansari, Ms. Francis, respected panelists and participants from the Commonwealth of Learning. From Africa, we have from Asia and the Pacific, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. So okay, you can't hear me, right? I've actually unmuted myself. Is this okay? No, you can't hear me yet? Yes, no? Can I continue? Wait, okay. So I'm going to type out.
YB, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay, I think we are having a bit of a technical problem.
Okay.
We can barely hear you. You're very soft. We're trying to figure it out.
All right. My only problem is I have to ask a question in Parliament. My question is up by about 10:30. So that's the only issue. So maybe we can try to reschedule. Worst case, if the technical problem is not solved in the next 5 minutes. Is that okay?
Yes, okay. We will try to solve it with your staff, and we'll try to get you on. I think more or less. Wait, hold on. Give us a second. Can you fix the problem? Can we try it now? Can you say something?
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. So I'm going to just begin, and I apologize because this is the final week of Parliament, and we have a lot of bills and actually quite crucial bills. I was very happy that we have approved our anti-sexual harassment bill last week. Anyhow, I mentioned our our speakers today, our panelists, and members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Salam hormat. And it's an honor to be here today with you. I'm sorry about it being virtual, but this is a keynote speech that I've been given the honor to deliver, and it really comes in view of the 4th Pan-Commonwealth Training Program on Women and Leadership in ODL, organized by the Commonwealth of Learning, the COL, in collaboration with WOU Wawasan Open University. Now, you've heard earlier, and the theme along women leaders shaping the future for a sustainable world, broken further down to the sub-themes of leadership, tech, and climate change. And it will not work if we don't have engagement, if we're not engaging and meeting the different stakeholders on the ground. So esteemed guests, I'd like to share that in 2005, the Malaysian government actually had a pilot adopting the idea of gender mainstreaming across all ministries back in 2005, yeah? So each cabinet minister at the time was tasked with prioritizing the welfare protection of children in policy making, nation building, and budgeting. So there was an understanding that the Ministry of Women alone could not carry the Herculean task of ensuring gender equality and promoting gender sensitivity within the country. It has to be a whole of society approach, a whole of government approach. So granted, we do need to fortify institutional memory because that was back in 2005. And today we're talking about 2022, where we just passed the Anti-Sexual Harassment Bill or Act. And this Anti-Sexual Harassment Act has been more than decades in the making, thanks to the civil society and different groups who have been tirelessly advocating for its creation or existence. Now, it's been a welcome move by the government. It signifies a commitment to protecting the physical and mental well-being of women and men. Yeah. So the passing of the act is timely and it segues nicely with today's agenda. And for me, one of the key things I like to share is, of course, the UN Economic and Social Council's definition of gender mainstreaming. It defines it as a strategy making concerns and experiences of women as well as men as integral in the part of the design, the implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of policies and programs. Yeah, this was also stated of not just the economic societal spheres so that women and men benefit equally and inequality is not perpetuated. So today we recognize unique voices in spaces of leadership and decision making. And nothing can truly be sustainable if we fail to include different voices on the table. And here I don't just mean women, but I believe typically marginalized segments, the disabled, people of different ethnicities, you have indigenous groups, segments who have all different perspectives and needs. And if more women are involved in decision making, there's a greater probability that more family-oriented policies will be designed. Of course, not just restricted to women, yeah. But we must remember that inclusivity and representation are not just buzzword quotas. It's actually different criteria that has to be met. Now, in terms of inclusivity, I think this is why I think we should, really give a round of applause to COL and Wawasan Open University, because this is a concept that's moving towards that, yeah? The pandemic has taught us there are ways to bring learning to individuals who may be unable to easily leave their homes. You hear about shared handphones. You hear about shared handphones. So this is a reality, yeah? Because not everybody would have access to infrastructure that most of us take for granted. Opportunities and infrastructure like these should be further invested in, whether during, outside, or as we go through and survive this pandemic. Now, distance learning is a boon for women who want to upskill and increase their employability, but cannot leave their young children. A lot of the findings in Malaysia showcase that you give training for women, but when there's no supportive ecosystem, how will they leave their children? Who will care for their children as they go for this reskilling, upskilling programs? And with regards to disabled individuals, it's difficult for them to stray too far from their homes. So improving access to education is an important way to increase inclusivity, which can accelerate action, inshallah. And esteemed guests, women, becoming good leaders, it really requires the development of strategies to counter bias, stereotyping, and discrimination. Often for change to take place at the policy institutional level, women needs to be the advocates, the key advocates. It's not, just our task alone. It requires, as I mentioned earlier, whole of government and society approach. But it's really crucial that we equally use the opportunity that we have, to call out stereotypes, to call out sexist views, even as they are voiced by powerful individuals, inclusive of members of parliament. So women play a key role in the realm of sustainability, in terms of managing resources, being educators and protectors of heritage. And women are also consumers, who fuel the economy. There's many. The problem is this: women lack control and over resources and decision making, and they bear the disproportionate impact of disasters, including increased violence and great household responsibilities. And this is captured through reports by the UN FPA, highlighting how female-headed households within the urban poor segment struggled more with making ends meet during the pandemic. And in Malaysia, as in many other countries, women also form the bulk of informal workers. That means they're not protected. And of course, government's introducing certain policies to ensure that women are better cared for in the event of a calamity. So I'm turning my attention now to the international stage. As it stands, only 22 countries have elected women head of state, of government, while 119 nations have never had a women leader, according to the UN Women. And at the current rate of progress, gender parity at the highest positions of power will not be reached for at least 130 years. So analysis shows that parity would not be reached in national parliaments even before 2063, and in ministerial positions before 2077. Now, these numbers, of course, is not the end in itself, but it helps us gauge, our developments and what needs to be worked on. Women also typically make up a smaller share of political party members than men, and even so, they usually are the usual canvas. They work on canvassing, but not really having or wielding a lot of influence in the decision making. I've said earlier, participation of women are important. But, in terms of my relative experience, together with a lot of my colleagues, it can be quite punishing, because the landscape is really created to meet the needs and the usual practices of men. So how do we then encourage an environment that encourages women, that supports women, empowers women to thrive in this space? Infrastructure, laws, and regulations. I mentioned earlier the Anti-Sexual Harassment Act, and we also just passed, quite excited about this because our former Deputy Prime Minister spearheaded it in the previous two governments. Housewives Social Security Act, where you see progressive policies around paternity and maternity leave are actually designed to ensure that women are able to thrive in an environment that cares and allows them to meet their needs across the different age spectrum. And the world, of course, has a lot to gain from female leaders. Rankings cited by the Harvard Business Review, usually women outscore men in most leadership competencies, but also, the ability to take initiative, learning agility, and readiness to inspire, motivate. Of course, everyone has room to disagree, but my point is, we are also using evidence-based to push and propel the role of women in decision making. Now, I think taking a gender perspective, ladies and gentlemen, is important. I mentioned earlier, and I think we want sustainable solutions. So basically, when you talk about recognizing, understanding women's perspectives, it also has to be grounded. My office in Permatang Pau, my constituency, had the pleasure to collaborate and be led by one of our Malaysia's renowned economists specializing in poverty, Professor Dr. Fatimah Kari. And she's a Sarawakian from East Malaysia, and she helped us conduct a multi-dimensional poverty index study amongst B40 households, as in the bottom 40% of households, during the height of the pandemic last year, from April to May 2021. And we managed to unearth a COVID-adjusted poverty line, and we found that households of single mothers were far more multidimensionally poor, than male-headed households in the dimensions, not just savings after income, but also access to online education during the pandemic, access to food and nutrition, job security, household comfort. So we utilize 9 dimensions to measure how deprived they are. And the amount of take-home pay for a female-headed household is 680 ringgit less compared to a normal and usual household. And I think this is important because it just showcases how much more needs to be plugged in across a gendered perspective. You don't assume you give the same amount to all households and they will be able to cater accordingly. It really reflects the marginalization of women in different aspects of life, in terms of discrimination in the workspace, gender-based violence, structural barriers to education, or the general lack of savings and social security. And, we also have numbers from a similar study in 2018, before the pandemic, conducted by Professor Fatima and a few of our other colleagues on Malaysian retirees on our Employment Providence Fund database. Again, women live longer on average, and they end up, losing their husbands earlier, or even growing up older, but with lesser quality of life. Now, if you remember, in my first introduction, I mentioned about the pilot that was done in 2005. And this is why whatever is done by COL, you must have institutional memory, because even in 2005, there were already plans to make sure you allocate funding sufficiently for women who, under the Ministry of Health, usually suffer more osteoporosis versus men with other usual injuries. But it's not being done today, again, because institutional memory and the know-how has to be absorbed. Crucially, sometimes civil servants have to lead the politicians. Now, esteemed guests, we need more women, not just in policy making, but also in engineering, technological innovation, at the forefront of cutting-edge medical research. Females are still routinely left out of biomedical research and ignored in analysis of data. Now, the harsh reality is that there's not enough research out there done on women's bodies and health outcomes. That's why we are working very closely with the Center for Affordable Diagnostics and Therapeutics, based and led by researchers at St. George's University of London. They are currently conducting research on drug repurposing. Why? Because when we talk about countries in South Asia, talking about countries in Africa, you have to ensure that healthcare is affordable. And they're using drug repurposing to cure cervical cancer and bowel cancer using artesunate, a drug originally used to treat malaria. So it's my hope to showcase how we prioritize agenda, again, to address the needs of women and to make sure they are affordable, so that there's not deepening inequality in all the policies and proposals that we are suggesting. Another example of tech or medical advancements specifically tailored to the comfort of women is the development of the human papillomavirus DNA cervical self-sampling test kits produced by University Malaya under the Rose Foundation to replace the deeply uncomfortable pap smears. Sorry, I always say this in my constituency, and everyone's like, automatically will support this, yeah? And using these test kits are not just more accurate, you can do it yourself. It eliminates the necessity of going to the doctor and really minimizes the problem of embarrassment and fear, preventing Malaysian women from getting the checkups that they need. So best of all, it's proven to be far more effective than pap smears, and it's linked up to technology. So what I believe is, from the policy maker perspective, it's important to identify these key success stories, from your ecosystem, and further empower and provide support for them. So esteemed guests, that's why for me, closer to home, based on the next few challenges that we face, notwithstanding the successes, is we see how gender, poverty, and the recent freak flooding events across multiple states in Malaysia intersect. So you're going to see a far more challenging future affecting women as extreme climate hits not just Malaysia, but around the world. So certain parts of Malaysia are known to be flood prone during the monsoon months. The flooding events of this last year were particularly severe in their sheer frequency and ferocity. This was no natural disaster, so we do need to take into account climate change and how it affects women, especially in the bottom 40 category, because it's going to happen and it's going to worsen. So displaced victims were unable to go to work or school, and some were exposed to post-flood diseases in the ensuing cleanups. And the homes of the rich and poor alike were submerged, but disproportionately again, it hits the poorer segments which are situated in the lowlands. So if you don't have adequate social safety nets, devoid of savings, you're now not in a position, yeah, to rebuild your homes and your lives after losing everything at one go. So applying a gendered lens, even to environmental disasters, is crucial for truly sustainable solutions. So as we build our green skills, we want to adapt further to the harsh impact of climate change. Then we also try to inculcate and share knowledge on the causes of a warming climate, and from this to include women in the process of sourcing solutions. So, ladies and gentlemen, I believe, as a woman, I believe I'm so much luckier than many others denied due to the lottery of birth. We live in a country, we are able to gain education, and it's now into my 15th year of being a member of parliament. But sharing and hearing the stories of so many other women struggling, even not just to be educated themselves, but to educate their children, and then inheriting intergenerational trauma because of the poverty that they experience, just gives me the sense of, we don't have much time. A lot of the changes that has to be done should have been introduced last year, if not 10 years ago. But this drive actually helps us to, of course, COL, to share whatever knowledge and insights that we have gained together and learn from each other's relative experiences. So I believe every woman deserves to live a life of dignity with every basic need met. And ultimately, a sustainable future is one that looks towards how do you make sure no one truly gets left behind. With that, I conclude. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I really would like to hear more. Perhaps I shall get a copy of the recording later. I wish us luck as well as the last week of Parliament. Many things that we want to do, but we are also dependent on the government of the day. But inshallah, God willing, through this shared experiences and the COL itself, the instructive lessons that you have shared with us, we can do better together. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Have a great training program for the next 3 days.
Thank you very much, YB. Thank you very, very much. Really appreciate your time. Yeah. We have actually, just to let you know, there are women from 14 countries who has flown in over 24 hours.
Thank you. Oh my God, I'm really sorry I can't be with you. I have to run in now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Welcome to Malaysia, and really look for towards a fruitful engagement in the next 3 days. Thank you very much.